mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 3 of HBO Max's Raised by Wolves, entitled Good Creatures. Now, I think one of the biggest developments we get out of this episode is that it looks like the Serpent baby might actually be a good creature. We find out that apparently the Serpent is a herbivore, which I at the time didn't think that was good enough evidence to suggest that it was not responsible for killing those researchers. But we later find out that the scales were tested and that it's one, not aquatic, and two, its scales are not impervious to the acid water. So Mother decides she's going to bring it back to this cave, and that kind of poses an interesting kind of conflict because, well, for one, we've seen Mother and Father kind of like not agree on anything really as of late. You know, she decides she's going to go off on her own to kill it. He doesn't like that. He's going on his own mission with those bombed up prisoners. And then she decides not only is she not going to kill it, but she's going to bring it back to the base to keep it safe. And it's just kind of like, she just seems to kind of like be undermining him at every point. And I think that's kind of, we got a little bit of that in season 1. And it kind of grew a little bit as they became a little bit more human in their emotions, particularly Father. And I think now that's going to continue. They're going to continue to explore that. I don't know how interested I am in that since it's been explored. It kind of seemed like they had gotten a fresh start, kind of like Father was willing to throw it all out and forget about it in the first episode. And now it kind of feels like he's back questioning how he feels about her decisions and kind of being at conflict with her. So I don't know how much I want to see that, but it looks like that's going to continue to be explored. But there's other aspects of their relationship too that I think are going to be pretty interesting as well. So moving on to Father, which I think he's going to be a pretty pivotal piece this season because, you know, he's got this android skeleton that he found, and we saw in episode 2, I believe, that the android skeleton is kind of like starting to kind of like grow vegetation like berries. And then in this episode, he runs into Marcus when they're both searching for the Serpent, and Marcus easily dispatches with Father and then releases the prisoners, and they join him in his little cult. And before I even continue, let me sit on this for a minute. Marcus easily dispatches Father, who later in the episode easily dispatches a industrial android with like a chainsaw and a gun and all this kind of shit. And I think that now we kind of got to wonder about Marcus, right? Because, like, you know, we know he's batshit crazy and he was hearing voices, and they didn't really talk about these transmissions in this episode, but I feel like we've always been led to believe that Marcus's so-called calling or his ability to hear voices or this prophecy for him is bullshit and he's not really anybody important. But now we kind of got to wonder, right? Like this, like I said, Father just made quick work of this industrial android, but Marcus made quick work of him. So what does that say about Marcus? I think that's something interesting to explore as well. But Father ends up with the android piece, which he appears to be putting back together and forming a full skeleton. And then at some point, some of his fuel blood that was leaking from his confrontation with Marcus after Hunter brought him back to life again, it leaks onto the skeleton, and the vegetation dies, but the skeleton seems to come alive. And he continues to almost build something of not a relationship, but we see him talking to the android skeleton. You know, like he's talking, like it's another person, but he's kind of just talking out loud to himself. And then as it continues to, I don't even know what you call it, like reform or rejuvenate, he seems to talk to it even more directly. And we see him kind of like nurturing it, almost now he's like trying to bring it back to life. And he's gathering up fuel, or attempting to gather up fuel blood, which is only going to accelerate this process. And I'm wondering now, because there's a moment in this episode where Hunter talks about Father's ability to transfer consciousness. He says something like, you're actually, no, Hunter doesn't say it. I think someone else tells him this. Was it Campion tells him that Hunter said this or something? I think that's what it was. Campion tells him that Hunter said his model is like very sturdy, very strong, pretty formidable, and it can also have its consciousness transferred into other bodies. And now we got Father who essentially creating, befriending, talking to another android body. I mean, I feel like that's kind of got to be foreshadowing at some point that Father is going to die again, but have his consciousness transferred into this new android that he's creating. Or it'll be a thing that might be even more interesting if he does it on purpose. He transfers himself into this other body for whatever reasons. Maybe that body is more, I don't know, sturdy, useful, good looking. Maybe he used it to infiltrate somewhere. I don't know. But I think at some point that his consciousness has to end up in this new android that he's building here. And I think that's a really interesting direction to take this, I think. Let's see, what else do I have here? Marcus's plotline kind of continues to remain uninteresting, but like I said, I like this idea of like, okay, is he really starting to gain powers of some sort? He seems to be easily dispatching with Father, but then there's something about his ability to gather these people to his cause. And I mean, granted, the prisoners are people that he essentially saved. They knew they were eventually walking toward their death, so it makes sense that if he frees them of that they would then join him. But he seems to just have a real knack for good luck, I think will be the best way to put it. And it made me wonder too. I mentioned in the video for episodes 1 and 2 that it seemed like he was getting veinier. And in episode 3, I'm looking like, okay, he's definitely getting veinier at this point, right? And then I think, again, he easily dispatched Father. So now I'm starting to wonder, again, all of this stuff is going to be, for him, signals of some sort of divinity, like he's being helped by Soul. But I'm constantly looking for a logical reason for what's happening to him. And again, I'm wondering, him eating or being force-fed Mother's necromancer eyes, is that now giving him some sort of super strength? Is that obviously, I think that's obviously what's causing him to get veinier, and that's also what might be making creating some sort of aura or something that's emanating from him that's drawing people to him. And I'm wondering if that's something they're going to play with. I feel like that has to be it, because we can't be expected to just accept naturally that Marcus will be easily able to beat Father, and then Father is easily able to beat a super fucking android. So Marcus has to be special in some sort of way. But as of now, I'm still kind of finding Marcus to be pretty uninteresting. I also thought it was interesting that the girl android, whose name I can't remember, earlier in the episode, she referred to her mother. No, she referred to Marcus as her mother's boyfriend. And I put my notes like, man, he could get presumptuous, right? But then later in the episode, they kiss, and I'm like, okay, I guess they was together, and I didn't know it. Let's see. So I'm at about 8 minutes. I actually kind of have several thoughts. I usually kind of, talk about stuff that I liked about the episode, which I did. And then I have the thoughts, which usually come a little bit later in the video, but I have a few, and they're just, again, things that I just kind of want to get out there. So I already talked about Marcus being veinier. The android girl, when she's talking with Paul and Campion, I think actually specifically she might have been talking to one of those two. I can't recall which. But she's repairing her leg, and she mentioned something like, like my mother broke my neck once. And then he asked about it, and she said something like, that story is classified, or some shit like that. I wonder if that's going to come back around. Like, if we're going to find out there's something weird going on with that relationship, even though to this point it seems pretty much on the up and up. But is it a thing where it's like, we know this android has the memories of the actual girl. Did the mother break the neck of the actual girl or the android? And I'm starting to wonder if it was the actual girl, and that's how the actual girl ended up dead, and that's why the android is now, the android is now imbued with like her consciousness, the actual girl. That will be interesting. I hope they explore that, because you don't put a line out there like that and just throw it away. Like, my mom broke my neck, and we're not gonna revisit that. No, you gotta revisit that. So a guy up to this point, I've just been calling him Glasses Guy in my notes, because I feel like they haven't said his name, but apparently his name's Cleaver. He's the guy that is essentially the assistant to the Trust. He wears the glasses. He has like what looks like tattoos on the side of his head, like some Mike Tyson shit. And I feel like he's jealous almost of Mother and her relationship with the Trust, because there's a moment where she's going off to continue killing the Serpent, and Cleaver's like, oh, I'm gonna tell the Trust about this, and then the Trust is like, yeah, go with her. And she says, like, we being her Mother and the Trust are alike. We come from the same creator, so we kind of think the same way. And he's like, well, the Trust ain't no killer. And I don't know. It just feels like he a hater to me. And I'm wondering if there's going to be some sort of conflict between him and Mother over his allegiance to the Trust, or something of that nature, or his jealousy of her relationship with the Trust. The profile shot of Mother climbing the mountain, it's kind of like a far out, kind of like an establishing shot of her climbing the mountain, and its profile from the side was an incredible fucking shot. Like, it looked amazing. And then I also noticed Sue seems to be on the path to discovering that Mother is the mother of this Serpent, the number 7. And I don't know where that's going to go, but I can't imagine that in a group of people who are already hesitant to have Mother, Father, and those kids there, that they're going to be okay with finding out that the Mother also birthed this Serpent, and that the Serpent is there on their grounds. And you have to wonder too about this Serpent, because is we know that the scales were analyzed, and that it's actually not aquatic, and that it's not impervious to the acid water, so it probably didn't kill those researchers. But there's like moments where I kind of feel like Mother is favoring the Serpent because the Serpent is her child, and not looking at it as pragmatically as you would think that an android would. And then you have to also consider that she was essentially, I don't want to say impregnated, because she didn't actually have sex with OG Campion, because that was just kind of like in a simulation. But in some way, this Serpent was put into her with purpose. And I can't imagine that it was put into her just so she could, like, grow it like a child and keep it like a child in this cave. Like, to what end, right? Like, so I feel like there's got to be something going on with the Serpent that we still haven't quite gotten. What the fuck was that? We haven't quite gotten enough information on. And there's a line where Father says, like, my caregiving protocol says that thing's a danger to our family, and Mother says, well, my caregiving protocol says to protect it. And so, like, the fact that they have a different interpretation of how the Serpent should be handled is really interesting to me, as far as the purpose of the Serpent. And is Mother being blinded by the fact that it is technically her kid, or is she actually, thinking with her mind? And I don't know, but I'm kind of leaning toward the former. So I feel like this season is taking its time, really getting rolling. I feel like these first 3 episodes have just been kind of okay. Like, they're setting the stage for what I think is going to be some really cool stuff. Like I said, we got all kinds of questions about Father, this new android, the Serpent, glasses guy. Does Marcus really have some sort of powers? Like, there's all kinds of questions that are being raised that I think are going to be interesting to explore throughout the rest of the season. I don't know how many episodes it's going to be, but let's say it's 8 throughout the remaining 5, or if it's 10 throughout the remaining 7. I think there's a lot of room to explore some really cool stuff. It's off to a slow start, but there's a lot of potential here. So I'm enjoying it so far. I'm going to keep covering it, and I'll see you guys next week for episode 4. Peace.